The sky was painted gold that afternoon. A perfect day for love. White roses framed the grand cathedral steps, petals scattered like whispers of forever. Guests glided up the marble stairs, their laughter chiming against the walls of glass and stone. Inside, chandeliers burned like 1,000 tiny suns, casting a warm glow that could almost make you forget how cold people could be. Everyone was smiling. Everyone except Ethan Reed sat in the back of a sleek black sedan parked across the street, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that the leather creaked beneath his fingers. His reflection stared back at him from the rearview mirror, jaw tight, eyes storm dark. Dressed in a driver's uniform, cheap and plain, he looked nothing like the man he used to be. Once, he belonged in places like this. Once, his name opened doors and made headlines. Once, he built an empire, but that was before they took it from him. Before, the man standing at that altar stole his company, and the woman who once swore she loved him. A melody drifted out from the open church door, soft, sacred, and cruel in its beauty. Guests turned in unison, their faces lighting up as the bride appeared. Emma, the sight of her hit him like a blow to the ribs, dressed in silk so pure it mocked every sin she had committed. Her smile was wide enough to hide the venom behind it. He remembered when that smile was his, when those promises were whispered against his skin like prayers. And now they were vows for another man. That man stood waiting at the altar. Ryan Carter, Ethan's best friend, his brother, in everything but blood, the one who knew every scar, every dream, and used that knowledge to gut him alive. Ryan looked like a king in his tailored suit, every line sharp, every detail perfect. Guests whispered about his brilliance, his success, his charm. No one here knew the truth that Ryan had built his throne from the bones of Ethan's life. Now, Ethan sits in the driver's seat, dressed like a nobody, while Ryan prepares to marry the woman Ethan once thought would be his forever. A laugh bubbled in his throat. Low, bitter. It tasted like iron. He reached for the small device on the passenger seat, a black and unassuming tablet. The screen glowed to life with a tap. Lines of code, video feeds, files. Every secret he had collected over the last 6 months was waiting like coiled snakes behind that glass. He stared at his reflection one last time. Then he whispered to no one, "Enjoy your perfect day, Ryan. It's the last one you'll ever have." And with that, Ethan opened the door and stepped out into the sunlight, his shadow stretching long across the pristine pavement as the church bells began to toll. The laughter inside the cathedral bled into the street like a cruel melody. Ethan adjusted the cap on his head, pulling the brim low, and turned away. The crowd didn't see him. They never would. That was the point. But as he walked toward the service entrance, the past clawed its way back, uninvited, vicious. 3 years ago, the office smelled of cedar and ambition. Ethan stood at the head of a long mahogany table, sun slicing through the glass walls of his corner suite. Charts glowed on the massive screen behind him, a symphony of green arrows climbing skyward. "Quarterly revenue is up 30%, he announced, voice calm, steady. The team broke into murmurs of awe. Cameras clicked, a journalist scribbled notes. Headlines were already forming in their minds. Tech visionary Ethan Reed shatters records again. End of .com. Beside him stood Ryan Carter's best friend, partner, and brother. They had built this company from a tiny apartment with 2 laptops and a dream that tasted like hunger. Back then, they lived on ramen and hope. Back then, Ryan would have bled for him, or so he thought. As the room emptied, Ryan clapped a hand on his shoulder, that familiar grin carved into his handsome face. "You killed it today, man," he said. "We're untouchable." Ethan smiled faintly, exhaustion coiled in his bones. "We're just getting started." He believed it then. Believed in Ryan. Believed in Emma. Emma. The memory shifted soft candlelight. The smell of jasmine. Emma leaned across the balcony, her laughter warm as wine. Her hair spilled like molten gold under the city lights, her eyes holding futures he wanted to live in. "You work too much," she teased, tracing a finger along his sleeve. "One day you'll forget what love feels like." "Not possible," he whispered, pulling her close. "Not with you." He remembered the taste of her lips that night. Remembered thinking, "This is it, my forever." The first crack came quietly. A late meeting Ryan insisted on having without him. A signed contract he didn't remember approving. Then, the phone call that turned his world to ash. Ethan Reed officially steps down as CEO of Loomtech. The news anchor chirped, her voice too bright for the words it carried. Insiders cite strategic restructuring. The new CEO, Ryan Carter, promises a bold new era. Ethan didn't hear the rest. Couldn't. His ears roared with betrayal. By the time he confronted Ryan, the damage was done. Paper trails meticulously arranged, shares diluted, votes swayed. The man he called a brother had gutted him with a smile. And Emma? She wasn't there that night, or the night after, or any night since. When he finally saw her again, it was in a glossy magazine spread. Tech power couple. Ryan Carter and Emma Blake take the industry by storm. His world tilted, crashed, burned. For weeks, Ethan disappeared. The headlines moved on, and the city forgot his name. But he didn't forget theirs. Not Ryan's grin. Not Emma's silence. Not the hollow echo of promises turned to lies. Now, the cathedral doors loomed ahead, white ribbons fluttering like mockery in the breeze. Ethan's jaw tightened as his fingers brushed the tablet in his pocket. Months of planning every late-night hack, every whispered bribe, every hidden camera he'd planted in the world Ryan thought was his. Today wasn't about breaking vows. It was about breaking illusions. One by one, the hum of muted conversations seeped through the gilded doors as Ethan slipped into the shadowed service corridor. The air smelled of polished wood and rose stew sweet, almost cloying, like the perfume of a lie. He adjusted the earpiece, tucked discreetly under his cap. A soft voice crackled through. "All set, boss," murmured Cam, his most trusted ally, the only person who hadn't vanished when the storm came. "Cameras are live, stream ready. Keep it clean," Ethan whispered. His voice edged with steel. "No slip-ups." He tugged at the brim of his cap and moved toward the banquet hall. Waitstaff bustled around him, trays glinting with champagne flutes, the laughter of privilege swelling in waves. No one looked twice at the man in the plain black uniform. In their eyes, he didn't exist. Perfect. Inside the hall, crystal chandeliers dripped like frozen rain from the ceiling, casting a golden glow on a sea of silk gowns and tailored suits. The aisle stretched ahead like a path to heaven or a trap. At its end, under an arch woven with ivory blooms, stood Ryan Carter, smiling. Perfect. Everything Ethan once believed him to be. And beside him, Emma. She was breathtaking. A dress that shimmered like morning frost, a veil soft as whispered secrets. For a moment, the sight carved into Ethan like glass. He felt the ache, the what if, but then he saw how Ryan's hand gripped hers, not with love, but possession. The mask cracked, and Ethan remembered why he was here. He moved silently, slipping behind the bar. From this vantage point, he had the room in his palm. The cameras Cam had planted earlier were feeding live into a private channel angles from every corner, every smile, every secret glance. And then, his eyes caught something. A man in a gray suit nervously pats his breast pocket before handing Ryan a sleek black envelope. Quick, subtle, almost invisible. Almost. Ethan's pulse spiked. He tracked the man's movements through the crowd until he disappeared into a side hallway. Without hesitation, Ethan followed. The side hallway, the music dimmed behind him, replaced by the muffled thrum of his heartbeat. He quickened his pace, rounding the corner just in time to see the man slip into a private lounge. Ethan eased the door open a crack. Inside, Ryan stood with his back to the door, the envelope spread open on the table, thick stacks of cash. Next to it are documents stamped with the name Solstice Energy. Ethan's breath caught. Solsticeth, the clean energy project he and Ryan dreamed up years ago, the one Ethan thought had died when Ryan buried his career. Not dead. Stolen. Ryan's voice cut through the haze. Tell your boss the deal's locked after tonight. Once the merger hits, LoomTech owns the patents outright. Ethan Reed stays out of the picture for good. The man nodded, scooping up the cash. Ryan grinned. The same grin he had worn the night they launched their prototype. But now, it had dripped poison. Ethan's jaw tightened until his teeth ached. Every muscle in his body screamed to storm in, to smash that smile into the ground. However, rage without strategy was weakness, which Ryan counted on. Not tonight. Tonight, Ethan would let him smile, and then he'd rip the mask off in front of everyone. He slipped back into the corridor, heart pounding, mind ablaze. Cam's voice hummed in his ear again. Everything okay? Ethan's lips curled not into a smile. But something colder. Better than okay, he said softly. We just got our finale. The grand doors groaned open as the wedding march swelled, thick and honeyed. 100 heads turned as Emma glided down the aisle, every pearl on her dress glinting like a secret. Ryan stood at the altar, a smile carved to perfection, teeth like promises he'd never keep. Cameras flashed, phones lifted. The illusion was flawless. Almost. Ethan stood behind a column, heart hammering a ruthless rhythm against his ribs. His delivery uniform was gone. In its place, a black suit, sharp but silent, like a shadow sharpened to a blade. His presence drew no eyes. Not yet. The massive LED screens looped soft floral visuals on the far wall, curated hashtags blinking in pastel frames, number Ryan and Emma forever. Number perfect pair. He almost laughed. The irony was a dagger twisting deeper. The priest's voice rolled through the hall. Do you, Ryan Carter, take Emma Grace to be your lawfully wedded wife? Ryan's lips parted, smooth as sin. I do. And do you, Emma? The words choked, silenced by a piercing tone slicing through the speakers. The LED screens flickered. Hashtags vanished. In their place bloomed a frozen frame. Ryan Carter. Envelope. Cash. A grin that could curdle wine. Gasps detonated through the room. Another clip rolled Ryan shaking hands in the lounge, voice as clear as glass. Once the merger hits, LoomTech owns the patents outright. Ethan Reed stays out of the picture for good. The words knifed through the music, vows, and every inch of the perfect lie. Guests shifted like a field of wheat in a sudden storm. Murmurs flared into chaos. Emma turned, veil trembling like a fragile wing. Her gaze snagged on Ryanon, the man who suddenly looked less like a groom and more like a criminal stripped naked in the sun. Ryan lunged toward the screens. Kill it! Turn it off! His voice cracked, desperate, the mask melting in real time. Too late. The following clip cut deeper. Stolen documents, emails stamped with Ryan's signature, deals greased with blood money, every betrayal streaming in brutal clarity. And then the final nail. A photo of Ethan and Ryan, framed in brighter days, laughter frozen in sepia tones. A caption burned beneath. Some friendships end quietly. Others explode. The screen dissolved into black. The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. A voice broke it low, steady, serrated with truth. Funny thing about masks, Ethan said, stepping forward. his silhouette slicing through the aisle like a blade. Every head turned. Phones rose like a forest of glass. "They crack," he continued, strolling, his words echoing against marble and money. "And when they do, everyone sees what's underneath." Ryan's face drained, the color fleeing like a coward. "Ethan, wait. Listen." "No." Ethan cut him off, his voice a quiet apocalypse. "You listen. You stole from me. You betrayed me. But worse?" His gaze swept the room, searing every stunned face. "You made her believe in a lie." Emma's breath hitched. Tears clung to her lashes like shattered diamonds. Ryan reached out, his hand trembling with rage or fear. "This is a mistake. It's fake." "Is it?" Ethan's lips curled into something colder than a smile. He raised his hand, the remote glinting like a trigger. "Play it again." The screen obeyed. Ryan's voice screamed back at him, looping like a curse. "Ethan Reed stays out of the picture for good." The guests erupted shouts, whispers, a symphony of disgust. Chairs scraped marble. A man in the front row spat. Shame. Cameras flashed, feeding the frenzy to a digital mob outside these walls. Ryan crumbled, the king dethroned in his court. And Ethan? He stood there, calm as winter, his silence louder than fire. The hall was a ruin of roses and whispers when Ethan finally moved. He turned not to Ryan or Emma, but to the doors yawning open like salvation. He paused at the threshold, the storm's silver fingers beckoning him home. Then he spoke, soft but clear, for every camera, every soul in the room. "Power doesn't reveal character, it exposes it." And then he was gone. 1 week later, the headlines screamed louder than any orchestra. CEO Ethan Reed reclaims empire after exposing $500 million sabotage at live wedding. Ryan Carter faces federal probe. Loom Tech merger collapses. But Ethan? He wasn't chasing headlines. He was rebuilding brick by honest brick, like before the rot set in. His board begged for statements, for interviews, for control. He gave them silence. The only voice he cared to hear was the hum of machines, the whisper of a dream resurrected. One evening, standing in the skeleton of his new lab, Ethan glanced at the sunset bleeding gold across the glass. His phone buzzed an unknown number. A message blinked. "Thank you for saving me before the vows saved him." His lips curved, faint, not joy, but peace. He slid the phone into his pocket and whispered, almost to the wind, "Some endings aren't the end. They're a doorway." He walked forward, into the burnished light, the weight of vengeance gone, replaced by something cleaner. Not revenge, restoration. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, or fought to reclaim what's yours, share your story in the comments. And if this ending hit you in the chest, subscribe, because the next story, it'll break you and build you again.